Hello there, St James community. I am very excited to be reading to you today something rather fitting with my new face. That is the tale of the ugly duckling. So let's get on and have a quacking time. At last, tap tap, crackle crackle, peep peep. One by one, Mrs. Duck's eggs broke open and out struggled her little chicks. Golden and fluffy and adorable, they peeped their way like a little yellow traffic jam towards the riverbank. But Mrs. Duck glanced back and saw that one egg was left unhatched, an egg much bigger than the rest. "Wait a moment, children," she said. Her neighbour took a look. "That's not a duck egg, wrong colour. That's a turkey egg," she said. What to do? Leave it to go cold or sit on it a little longer just to be sure? The next day the big egg crackled and two great black feet stuck out. "It does have very big feet," Mrs. Duck said to her neighbour. "Told you, turkey, I said, didn't I say? Nothing to do with you." But Mrs. Duck had stood and sat guard over the egg for so long that she felt a kind of fondness for the hulking, scruffy object that spilled out of it. "Put that in the river and it'll drown like a brig," said the neighbour. "That's a turkey, that." But it did not sink. The ugly duckling, oh, and it had a face only a mother could love, took to swimming like a duck to water. Dipping his head below the water, he tasted green weeds, and it almost tasted like happiness. In fact, he swam even better than the other little ducklings. Oh, those pretty, fluffy, delightful, spiteful little ducklings. "Ugly blurch! Why are you so ugly? Too big, big feet, big feet." His brothers and sisters peeped and pecked at the ugly duckling, trying to drive him away for fear their friends would laugh at them for having such a lumpy, dumpy, frumpy brother. "It looks like a tennis ball that has been chewed up by a large dog," declared the grand duckness, looking down at her nose. "Must we look at that ugly face every day? It spoils the view." And all of this the ugly duckling heard. Every birdie word. Pushed and pecked and poked, he learned to keep away from the other ducks. In fact, he moved farther and farther away till he found himself walking, waddling, stumbling, wading, and swimming away and away towards the sunset. The sun too moved away for the winter, and the fields and marshes, the lanes and winds grew colder. Ugly Duckling hid himself away in the marshes where the reeds rattled like feather quills and the water lay ankle deep. Falling asleep one night, he did not notice the ice creeping closer over the water, and he woke to find he could not move. A farmer came by and saw him, kicked the ice and broke it like an eggshell, hatching Ugly Duckling a second time. The kind farmer took him home to a warm house where the children flung wide their arms in welcome. It was a terrifying sight, like scarecrows blowing in a gale, gigantic creatures who ran towards him. Ugly Duckling ran too in a panic, round and round the little cottage, knocking over bowls and stools and toddlers and buckets. The farmer's wife shrieked, the children laughed, the door opened, and a boot kicked Ugly Duckling out into the winter time. Feather snow was falling. In fact, Ugly Duckling looked up to see what bird had shed its feathers, and he saw 6 swans flying overhead. The sight was so beautiful that it pierced his heart like a fishhook and drew it up towards the sky. For a moment, just for a moment. He had never seen such birds before, and though they passed over in the silence, he heard a kind of singing, more beautiful than any lark. At last a lark sang! Ugly Duckling woke. Somehow he had waddled his weary way through the winter and into warmer weather. He would stay among the reeds. Even so, he had learned that there was nothing waiting for him out in the wide world but kicks and unkindness. He was just too ugly to be seen by eyes, so he resolved to stay hidden from everyone. Still, the river called to him. His big black feet longed to push through a path of flowing water, to feel the current under him like a rush of his own bloodstream. He must swim to the river one last time. There on the river was a family of swans. Where to go? Where to hide himself? beauty cannot bear such ugliness, so obviously these lovely regal creatures would hate and detest him. Ugly Duckling upended himself, plunging himself head deep under water. When he could no longer hold his breath, he resurfaced and found himself under attack. The swans were rushing forward towards him, necks outstretched, beaks ready to slice him to pieces. Well, let them. Ugly Duckling stretched his head up high. At least he would die bravely. Little brother, friend, where is your flock? Where have you been hiding yourself? And their necks rubbed, flexing and stroking him. The swans did not hate him. From the riverbank came the sound of the farmer's children. Oh, they began to throw things, cake crumbs and bread crusts. Oh, look, a new one. Oh, he's the best one yet. Yes, isn't he just the most beautiful swan you've ever seen? Ugly Duckling bent his head and looked down at the sunlit water. His reflection looked back at him, a majestic swan, white as the clouds above and plumed with happiness. In fact, the swan was more wonderfully happy than any duck had ever been. The whole quacking history of the rolling river. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story and see whether you can guess who's behind this mask. Bye for now.